The upcoming release schedule for JRPGs is absolutely insane, with exciting remakes, sequels, and even brand new franchises. I just couldn't contain my excitement, so in this video, I wanted to share the 10 JRPGs I'm most excited to play, starting with a remake to my favorite game of all time. Like I said, Persona 4 Golden is my favorite game of all time, and this ground-up remake looks absolutely incredible. In the game, you play as a transfer student who moves to the sleepy town of Inaba and gets pulled into a string of bizarre murders tied to a mysterious channel that appears on TVs at midnight. Throughout the game, you'll form the investigation team and dive into the Shadowfield alternate world to get to the bottom of this mystery. Now, combat brings back the baton pass system from Persona 5, letting you chain turns between different party members to exploit enemy weaknesses more fluidly than the original version ever allowed. There's also a new all-out attack style called Series Finale that replaces the old Persona 4 finisher, echoing the 3G system from the more recent entries in the series. And visually, this game looks stunning, bringing it in line with the more recent Persona games like Persona 5 and Persona Reload. There's so much style and pizzazz in the menus and in combat, and I just can't wait to see what else this game has to offer from a visual standpoint. And the soundtrack has also been rearranged with a new vocalist stepping in to reinterpret some of the tracks, and the game also has a brand new voice cast, which I know it's always touchy with people, but I've heard some of the voices and they all sound fantastic. Now, knowing all the twists and turns, which are a big part of the story, it probably won't hit quite as hard, but I'll never turn down an excuse to reunite with my favorite cast of characters in my favorite game. This is it, the third and final chapter of the Final Fantasy Remake trilogy, closing out a story that started back in 2020. And it's been surprisingly controversial, but I've absolutely been loving this series so far, and I'm on the edge of my seat waiting to see how Square Enix will conclude it. Cloud and the full party reunite as Sephiroth's plans near completion, with Meteor looming over the planet and the giant weapons beginning to wake up and wreak havoc across the world. Vincent and Cid finally join the playable roster of characters this time, rounding out the party completely for the first time in the trilogy. I just cannot wait to see how they all interact with each other and what kind of cool team-up moves the game has in store for us. And the game opens up the world dramatically with the Highwind airship now fully controllable, letting you fly wherever you want and skydive straight down into new regions like Wutai and Mideel. And there's also a new equipment system in the game called Fits that lets characters take on different tactical roles and abilities, kind of like a job system, and it also applies to costumes, so I'm really curious to see how that all plays out. And Rebirth was already a really big game, and there's so much this game needs to cover, so I expect this to be a 100+ hour monster, and I'll be there day one to soak in every single second of it. Kind of a cool recent surprise, we are getting a brand new Langrisser title called Sea of Sword. Now, I absolutely love tactical RPGs, and this one looks really promising. You play as the Nameless One, an amnesiac protagonist searching for lost memories in the shadows, pulled into an empire's political games alongside a mysterious white-haired girl. And there's a handful of familiar faces that make a surprise return too, including Leon, Elwyn, Sherry, and the Legion of the Swordsmiths, all reimagined for this new story. And the tactical core evolves with a new dual general system, letting you deploy two heroes in the same unit and freely switching who takes the main or sub-commander role mid-battle. The game also breaks away from the old linear stage structure, opening into full RPG-style exploration across cities, wilderness, and even ships, with terrain elevation and destructible environments now factoring into battles. And there's classic unit types like flyers, infantry, and cavalry all still here, paired with a handcrafted art style and a brand new score from composer Yasunori Nishiki. One look at the gameplay and it seems to be taking cues from recent awesome tactical RPGs like Unicorn Overlord, which is only a good thing. And special shout out to Blackjack Studio, as this video features official collaboration content for Langrisser Sea of Sword. The pre-registration link and the Steam wishlist are both down in the description below if you want to check it out. And speaking of tactical RPGs, we have Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. Now, Fire Emblem has quickly become one of my favorite franchises, and I love that Intelligent Systems is returning to the world of Three Houses. And this is probably the game that's going to get me to finally buy a Switch 2. And the story follows 4 different protagonists, each competing in something called the Heroic Games, a tournament where the winner is granted a single wish. And you can choose between one of those 4 characters, and it seems like there's 4 separate campaigns, so this is going to be a huge game. Now, in between matches of the Heroic Games, you'll be able to explore the capital city, train at the practice grounds, recruit allies, and venture outside the city to gather resources and strengthen your army. And each protagonist has their own unique signature ability this time, and from what's been shown so far, they can hit dramatically harder than the AoE skills we're used to from past entries. And there's a familiar face tied to Three Houses that shows up at the end of the reveal trailer, Sothis, hinting at just how connected these two games might be. Classic tactical Fire Emblem gameplay is fully intact here, and after a bit of a letdown for fans with Engage, Fire Emblem looks to be back with a vengeance. Final Fantasy Resonance has the potential to be the sleeper hit of this entire list. It's the very first HD 2D Final Fantasy game built on the pixel art style that games like Octopath Traveler and Triangle Strategy made popular. And the story is based on the first arc of the mobile game Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, rebuilt from scratch as a full console quality RPG. In the game, you follow Rain, commander of an airship squadron, and his childhood friend Laswell as they investigate a weakening magical barrier and get pulled into a much larger conflict involving the world's crystals. And what's cool is familiar Final Fantasy characters like Cloud and Tidus make appearances alongside the new cast that you can essentially equip to your characters, and they give you bigger buffs, which is a fun touch for longtime fans. Now, combat here is turn-based with a timeline system, so you can kind of see what everybody's doing, where the abilities you choose affect how quickly your next turn comes around. And staggering enemies seems to be a big part of the combat here, and once you break their defenses, you can chain powerful resonant attacks, which looks to be the core hook of the combat system. And visually, it's just stunning, leaning hard into that HD 2D art style with lots of dynamic camera work that makes even the simple battles feel cinematic. Now, I never played the mobile version, but I've heard good things about it, so I'm super excited to dive into this one this October. Now, I'm a notorious Trails of Cold Steel hater, but I absolutely loved Sky First Chapter. I beat the original back in the day and the recent remake, but have never played any version of Second Chapter, so I'm incredibly excited to see what's on the other side of that insane cliffhanger. Now, of course, this is a full 3D remake of the original Sky Second Chapter, continuing directly where the First Chapter remake left off. Estelle sets out across Liberl to find Joshua, while slowly uncovering the truth behind the shadowy organization Ouroboros. And this is widely considered one of the best payoffs in the entire Trails series, so seeing this get the same modern treatment as the first game is huge for longtime fans. And this remake adds tons of cool new side activities like fishing, poker, and cooking with your party members. And what's nice is save data carries over from First Chapter remake, unlocking bonus items to help smooth out the early game. And the game also once again includes full English and Japanese voice acting. September is going to be absolutely jam-packed, but I'm definitely making sure I make time for this one. I've long sung the praises for Tokyo Xanadu on this channel and absolutely lost my mind when they announced this sequel. This long-awaited follow-up is set in an alternate version of Japan where Kyoto remained the capital. The story follows Rei, who steals a large sum of money from the criminal underworld and ends up being pulled into a mysterious otherworld while fleeing from pursuing Yakuza. And as a student at Hirasaka Academy, Rei ends up facing the monsters and mysteries spilling out from a massive labyrinth known as Xanadu. Gameplay alternates between real-world sections where you attend class and build relationships through a chat and kind of interesting card building system, and labyrinth sections where real-time action happens. Now, inside the labyrinth, combat shifts between 2D side-scrolling sections and full 3D action combat whenever you pass through specific gates. And you can strengthen your weapons, the soul devices, using points from exploration and daily activities, unlocking new actions and skills as you explore. This is a completely self-contained story, so don't worry, you don't have to play Tokyo Xanadu. However, despite the game recently releasing in Japan and players kind of figuring out a way to play it in English, there hasn't been an official release date announced for the West just yet, but honestly I'm kind of happy to wait as there seems to be zero breathing room with the upcoming release of games. Now, I skipped the last two Pokemon games because I heard a lot of negative things about them, but Winds and Waves will definitely bring me back to the franchise. And what's cool is this is the first one to be built exclusively for Switch 2. It's set in a brand new archipelago region inspired by Southeast Asia, with a huge emphasis on ocean exploration and underwater areas. And the three new starter Pokemon are Brout, a grass-type bean-chick Pokemon, Pom-Bomb, a fire-type puppy Pokemon, and Gekwa, a water-type gecko Pokemon. And the open world structure introduced in the last generation looks to be expanding here with jungles, swamps, lava-filled caves, and coral reefs all shown off in the reveal trailer. Underwater gameplay seems to be a major new pillar here, which is something the series hasn't really leaned to heavily before. And being built specifically for new hardware, this could end up being the best looking mainline Pokemon game in a long time. Emery Hearts is an indie JRPG that a lot of people are sleeping on, but here's your wake-up call. It's a retro-inspired JRPG from a solo developer drawing clear inspiration from classics like Secret of Mana, Illusion of Gaia, and even a little sprinkle of Final Fantasy VII. In the game, you play as Lug, an ordinary boy who gains the power to decide the fate of both humans and machines in a world where the two are on the brink of collapse. The world is presented with a striking voxel art style, giving it a distinct look compared to most retro-inspired RPGs. And combat is in real time and fast-paced, built around fighting corrupted robots while weaving in puzzle solving between the action. Now, I had the pleasure of revealing its release date at this year's Indie Quest and also played a ton of the demo, which is what really sold me on this game. It's really, really good, and I encourage you to give it a try. It's on Steam right now, one you absolutely need to keep your eye on. And last but certainly not least, we have Threads of Time. This looks absolutely breathtaking, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. It's a turn-based time-traveling JRPG that wears its Chrono Trigger inspiration proudly on its sleeve. You take on the role of Rai, a young swordsman who discovers his connection to the legendary Order of the Time Knights after his home is attacked. Using a massive time ship called the Needle, you travel across wildly different eras, from prehistoric lands full of dinosaurs to medieval kingdoms and even cyberpunk future cities, recruiting different party members from each period along the way. And combat leans into team-based combos and time-bending abilities, letting you manipulate turn order and unravel enemy defenses in creative ways. The whole thing is built in Unreal 5, taking the HD 2D aesthetic to a whole new level. With a small but clearly passionate team behind it, this has quickly become one of my most anticipated games on this entire list. Now, those were the 10 upcoming JRPGs I'm most excited to play, but to see the best JRPGs already released in 2026 that you can play right now, be sure to watch this video next.